Oh. I'm not sure what happened. Oh, your computer probably just went to sleep. She did go. Okay, well, here we are at 6:01 p.m. Time to call the meeting to order. We do have a board member, well, two board members absent. Perry is absent this evening. Daniel, we believe, will be here. Andrew. Sorry. Of course I'm going to screw that up, because of course I'm going to...
It's a little one at the beginning, we're good.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, no, there's going to be more. Oh, gosh. Charlie, I guess we'll go with roll call, and we'll then take a vote to excuse Perry.
All right,
Or do that now.
I'd go ahead and take roll. Vice Chair Fonger.
Here.
Board Member Crawford.
Here.
Board Member Cadwalder.
Here.
And let the record reflect that Chairperson Beecham is not here and will not be in attendance. He has provided notice, and then Board Member Schraubin has indicated that his ETA is approximately 6:20 today, so he got hung up, but should be here.
Okay, so entertaining, a motion to excuse Chairman Beecham.
I will move to excuse Chairman Beecham.
And I'll support.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Next on the agenda is to approve the agenda for this meeting.
And no changes.
And no changes?
I'll move
yeah.
to approve the agenda.
And I'll support.
Any more discussion? Okay, all in favor? Aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Approval of the minutes from the February 13th regular board meeting. I'll entertain a motion for us to accept those as written.
One minor adjustment that's non-substantive, not material, but the minutes in your packet have the signatory as Perry, but since Perry is not going to be here, we updated so the actual minutes that we're going to sign, signatory will be Craig. So again, not any substantive change, but did want to just highlight that real quick. And
Noted for the record.
yeah, I don't even think it needs to be, it's not an official amendment, but I did want to just make that clarification.
Thank you.
I'll move to approve the minutes.
And I'll support.
Okay, any more discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Okay, Charlie, time for the safety moment.
All right.
Yay, safety moment.
I will start, and I thought, you know what, the weather is nice and we all want it to be warm, so I thought we'd start getting ready for summer, and just wanted to touch base on just keeping hydrated. One of the things, it's important to stay hydrated as you get older. We all get older, become more and more susceptible actually to dehydration. Your body doesn't send the same thirst signals as it does when you're young, so just being mindful of that. And then this just highlights, 60% of your body weight is made up of water, and it plays a significant role in many functions between regulating your body temperature, your joints, protecting your organs. There's a lot that it does, so it's important to stay hydrated. So in here it kind of talks about get in a habit of hydration, make yourself aware of it, carry a water bottle, and then also be mindful of what you eat, especially in the summer. Watermelon, cucumbers, things like that are hydrating. So thought I'd just touch base there, and then also wanted to highlight, just so everybody is aware how much water you're supposed to be drinking. I come in at a cool 140 pounds, so I should be drinking 9 8-ounce glasses of water, or somewhere north of that, because I'm definitely somewhere north of 140.
Wow.
But yeah, those are just a quick reminder of you need to be drinking more water than you realize. So there's our safety moment. Didn't give you quite enough time, sorry. If I'd have paid attention, I'd have kept talking for another 30 seconds.
Do the lineman crews have coolers?
Yes.
Water coolers in the truck?
Yeah, and we've got the ice machine out here, so they keep, Ryan buys water from Costco by the pallet. There's probably one sitting right out there, and they just keep coolers full. And in the summer we offer more hydrated drinks like Gatorade, Powerade, things like that. And then there's also, I don't know if our guys use them, but there's little like electrolyte packets. We buy the squincher packets.
We buy some.
Something somewhere, but yeah, they have like a powder that they can add to their water that's for electrolytes and stuff. So something that from a work standpoint, when it gets, that's why I kind of thought of it. We're getting into this season and actually took dog for a walk and did an inadequate job of planning for hydration. So it made me think of it. The dog was none too happy, and neither was I. Oh, just a couple miles.
Right.
All right, well, thank you for asking the question, Daniel, and giving me a couple more seconds.
Yeah, I got
on my gullet. So next on the agenda is public comment. It appears we do not have anyone from the public here, so let's note that. And so we're on to action items. A is consideration to purchase a replacement forestry truck.
Yeah, so the forestry truck is the truck that we use that has the chipper bin in the back. It's a bucket truck, but it has a big chip bin in the back, so when we haul the chipper behind it, it just shoots chips into the back. A lot of information in the memo, and of course my packet just crashed on me. Sorry, my Adobe crashed. Pardon me. But I'll keep talking. So the forestry truck, like I said, included in here, the current forestry truck is 20 years old. It was the next major piece of equipment scheduled to be replaced. With the very lengthy 4-year lead time on the bucket truck that we ordered in May of 22, that 4-year lead time really forced us to recalibrate our equipment replacement fund, and then as talking with Ryan, we've started to notice some more. The age is becoming more and more evident on a 20-year-old truck, so pulling the trigger now is a priority for us. Again, it's all information is included in here, but the quote that's included in your board packet, which is a My Deal pricing, which is the state organized competitive bidding process that complies with our bidding policies, but the quote included, the My Deal price is $211,413, and just like everything else that we order, that is subject to adjustment. To give you an idea of the adjustment that we've seen so far on the bucket truck, 2 years, we've seen about a $25,000 price increase on that. We're planning for about another 20-ish thousand on the bucket truck. This truck, we're tentatively planning on a 20% price adjustment. To be honest, that's not based on anything. It's kind of in line with some of the things that we've seen from a vehicle replacement standpoint. But we've adjusted the equipment replacement fund and have factored in the estimated increases in both vehicles as well. The one thing that we have not factored into the equipment replacement fund that because it's unknown, is salvage value. Talking to Ryan, as far as salvage value, for lack of better terms, the green weenie, the big green old bucket truck. When the new bucket truck goes in, we have 2 bucket trucks now and a forestry, or one bucket truck and one forestry, or 2 bucket trucks, one forestry truck. When we get the new bucket truck, the everyday bucket truck will become the reserve bucket truck, the green weenie will be sold. We don't have plans to keep our current forestry truck. So when the new forestry truck comes in, should you all approve it, there will be salvage on that, and we will just immediately put that on an auction type website. And we're hoping to get $30-ish thousand, but I don't know, honestly. And some of that will be subject to what the market is at the time when we go to sell it, which, as I mentioned in the quote, or in the memo, lead time's about 18 months on this, so we're looking at getting this late in 2025, which would be fiscal year 2026, and the bucket truck is scheduled to come in, be delivered Q2 or Q3 2026. So if it comes in second quarter 2026, that'll still be in fiscal year 2026. If it comes in third quarter 26, it'll actually be in fiscal year 27. So we've made all of our plans and adjustments have been based on buying 2 trucks or paying for 2 trucks in fiscal year 2026. So with that, it's staff's recommendation to approve the purchase of the Outage model LR8-60 for the price of $211,413. Subject to pricing adjustments, and all the details are included in the quote in your board packet.
Yep, and everything looks good in the board packet. I've had a conversation with Charlie about this. It looks like all the check marks have been, ticked off. He's worked with his finance staff, made the appropriate adjustments to the funds, and accounted for everything well. He's worked with Ryan to make sure that they're getting the equipment that his team needs. So, I don't know, does anybody else have any questions?
I thought it was fine, yeah.
Okay, so I will entertain a motion to purchase the Alltech model LR80 truck for a price of $211,000 for $413, subject to pricing adjustments as detailed in the quote included in the board packet.
So moved?
Support.
Any more discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Next item on the agenda, for your 25 draft operating and capital budget.
So every year in March, there's Andrew.
Pause for just a second.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Hi.
Hey, Johnny.
Not missing much, we just bought a truck.
Yeah.
No, just got through the Forestry truck, action item, just wrapped that up and just diving into the budgets.
All right, well, thank you.
Yep.
Sorry, I'm late.
No problem.
Hi.
But as the board's aware, every March, the city charter requires that we approve a draft budget. The draft budget ultimately gets sent to the city, and they use that to round out their budgets. We will come back during our May board meeting and approve the final budgets. And just like every year, there's quite a bit of movement between the draft budget and the final budget. I want to just go through a couple highlights on here. If you'll go to the first page of the, I forgot about this one too. We'll come back to this one. But just a couple things to highlight in here. Starting with revenues, it appears that we're budgeting for flat-ish revenues. This is largely attributed to conservative estimates associated with residential and small commercial. We've talked about it quite a bit over the last few months. We're just not seeing the sales come out of the residential and small commercial. It's very weather driven, so in order to take a conservative approach, we've actually budgeted for no growth, flat sales at the residential and small commercial level. We will continue to do that for the final budget, but we will look to, we'll update the numbers in the final budget to the 12 most recent months of sales to try and make sure we're capturing the most up-to-date data. We do have the one large industrial expansion that is going to be substantial in terms of revenue. It doesn't appear that a lot of that is being carried through in the budget, but a lot of that is baked into our current the blue number there. The large industrial expansion fired up in December, so about half of it is going to hit this fiscal year, and then we'll get a full year of the new load, the additional load next year. So we won't ever be budgeting for that one incremental jump. So some of it gets lost in there. And then just a couple other things to highlight. The power supply costs are projected to be down again this year, or this next year. So This budget includes about $220,000 in PCA revenue. The budget from last year, that's that 10.55 million in sales, that included about $500,000 in PCA revenue. And it's just the difference in anticipated power costs. Again, that's something that we will look very closely at. We spend a lot of time looking at forecasted power supply for the final budget, because so much can move between now as we get into the warmer months. There tends to be some additional clarity around power supply as we get nearer and nearer to the actual term and focus. But those are some of the sales highlights. Again, not much to report on service revenue, and I'm going to just kind of hit some big buckets here. From an expense standpoint, you'll notice generation expenses are fairly flat. Budget year down a little bit, up from projections. A lot of that's just where Casey puts his time. Casey's very much involved in a lot of projects that we do. He doesn't just hang out in the the generation facility. He gets brought into quite a bit: IT work, engineering work. He led the charge on the emergency generator out here. So fairly consistent. One thing that is in there that I wanted to highlight is we really expect to use quite a bit more of that fuel budget this year. It's showing about a 42% increase over projected, but it's keeping the budget flat. And a lot of that we expect. Natural gas prices are going to continue to stay down. Last year's $15,000 number was based on anticipating elevated natural gas prices. The 15 this year is more driven by cheaper gas prices, but a need to run more. We're going to run the generators more this year, just for training purposes and looking to cross-train across to the distribution and the operations crews. So as we're preparing for needing to reduce our notification time down to 2 hours. So that's a big, that theme will come up throughout the budget. Purchase power expense. Right now, purchase power expense is looking very favorable and fairly flat and reduced from the forecast in the budget from our current fiscal year. And a lot of that is just power prices have been down this year, which is a good thing. Natural gas prices are down.
That's the only thing.
Natural gas prices are really down. We had a really mild winter. We're putting gas in storage. There's more gas in storage. That's partially a weather-driven thing, but there's not much thought that natural gas prices will stay this low for long. And a lot of that's going to be driven by LNG, liquefied natural gas exports. And NPPA did a great presentation at the last meeting, kind of highlighting some of the future challenges and future market pressures on the natural gas pricing. And a big one is there are a lot of LNG export facilities in development. And if the LNG export facilities really ramp up like they say they are, they're going to occupy quite a bit of supply, and we're going to see a lot of our domestic supply ultimately shipped elsewhere in the world, which is going to create more of a global market instead of really just a domestic market right now, or for the most part a domestic market. So not going to last forever, but while it's here, we'll take the reduced prices. One thing I want to highlight is the deficiency capacity charge. There's just a lot of movement there. You look back a couple years and it was a $17,000 credit, then you move forward to a $135,000 credit. Then we were expecting $115,000 and budgeted for a $115,000 credit this year, and then the clearing price, the base residual auction came in really low. So I just highlight it because so you can see the volatility very much in the capacity market itself. The number that we have here is a conservative capacity. What we're hoping is a conservative capacity number. Other than that, move on to distribution expenses. There's some oddball lines in the distribution expenses that are way out of whack this year that we're bringing in line. Maintenance of overhead lines here. You can see consistently, and then you can see a major jump for forecast this year. And that's largely this year driven by the storm we had in August. Almost all of that expense hit that line item, and all the work that they did on the south side of town, hanging cutouts and improving reliability there, a lot of that expense hit there. They hung a lot of cutouts, and there was a lot of labor dollars that ultimately hit that line item. So just highlight that because it's a big shift, and we had a big shift this year. Tree trimming expense is also a jump this year, and again, it's just out of anticipation of needing to trim trees. But a lot of the distribution line items are labor driven, so we allocate labor based on historical trends, and there are times that you can follow annual historical trends. And then certain items like tree trimming seem to take a longer cyclical, kind of run through a longer cycle where we can go a couple years without needing to focus too much on them, and then unfortunately we do a lot of proactive, but every couple of years we find a reactionary situation where we just have a crazy growing season or something odd happens. Last year we had kind of 2 growing seasons. You talk to Ryan, I don't know much about that, but I trust what Ryan says. Overall though, it's only about a 2.5% increase on distribution expenses. Moving forward to the customer accounting, we are starting to increase the EWR budget, or the energy optimization budget, starting to push that out just a little bit, knowing that with the mandates coming down that force us to increase our savings. It's going to take money to do that, so we're just going to start ramping up that budget. There's a certain cost per kilowatt hour saved that you just have to spend the money to realize the savings usually. So we're increasing that budget. Also included in that budget is rolling out a residential level 2 EV charger. We don't have an electric vehicle charger rebate right now. Almost every utility does. So wanted to bake that into the budget, but the way we're approaching it is we worked with UFS, and an update will come next month, but we work with UFS to determine what's the reasonably anticipated sales growth or load growth associated with an electric vehicle, what's the margin on that, and what's a 3-year cost recovery. So included in here is a projection to hand out about 10 $350 level 2 EV rebate, EV2 electric vehicle, level 2 electric vehicle charger rebates. So that's included in this budget.
Is there, how will you fund that? Will it just come out of our funds, or
Yeah.
is there a grant that you could get?
It's just it's similar, so we're running it through the line extension policy, so just how we fund, if you build a new house and say, hey, I need an electric service, and you gotta run a line off into the woods, we run the same calculation to say, your house, we expect X number of kilowatt hours sales over a 7-year period. We use different cost recovery windows for different things, but the EV charger it's just based on, it's an incentive to pick up the new load growth, basically. And one thing that we're gonna do is tie it to the time of use rate. If you want the electric vehicle charger rebate, you need to go on a time of use rate for at least a year. And that's just to align those price signals across the board.
So my question is, because I don't have any of that, if I have that all hooked up in my garage, and you say that I can only have it run or get it energized is like during the night, is there a timer for that? I just don't know how those work. So I can like set up a timer, if you guys say only from the hours between 2:30 and whatever, you can.
I
We wouldn't say that.
EV, what's that?
We wouldn't require that, would we?
No, you can charge whatever you want, but it will be
We're
advantageous for
saying
you.
if you get an EV charger from us, you need to go on time of use rates.
Yeah, because
So if
it's,
you want to charge during the day, it'd be crazy expensive.
Yeah, you can charge whenever you
And then
want.
when you're on time of use,
But
everybody
it's-
wants to go all night because it's the cheapest, so I'm charging your car overnight, it will be the cheapest.
Yeah.
And I think you can probably set a timer on those.
You can. It's all programmable in the, there's a lot of settings in EVs that you can adjust and tweak and yeah, it's easily.
And they're pretty smart too. I mean, just, yeah, by setting the timer, say, nighttime, and sometimes, I mean, it'll do all the calculations.
Yeah, it'll do it. And again, you can charge whenever you want, we just wanna make sure that if you are charging and you're putting a substantial load during peak times, you're being charged appropriately for that. And it's really about sending the price signals that encourage charging during low peak times, because, you know, our transformer doesn't, we build our system to meet the one peak moment of the year. We build our system to meet the one highest minute of load a year. So if we can encourage EV drivers to charge at night, we can take advantage of capacity in the transformer's capacity in the system at night when the load is low. So it's a win-win situation. We're gonna send you a price signal that we value that you're adding load, but if you're going to, it needs to be priced
And
appropriately.
you'll know that they adhere to it because of the load that they're pouring.
Well, no, because your meter is time stamped. We take hourly readings of every meter, we know down to the hour on a residential service. Is that right? Hour or half hour on residential?
Hour.
Hour, that's what I thought. So down to the hour, we know what you use from 6 PM to 7 PM, what you use from 7 PM to 8 PM, and then there's just time, the rates change based on the time of the day. And time of year, so. But it's always cheapest to charge from 11 to 5 in the morning, noon to 6, or midnight to 6, I don't remember exactly the window off the top of my head. but-
Can I get that report?
Can I have a curiosity question?
Absolutely.
Do you know enough to answer if EV chargers will, if we could use those as some part of our energy efficiency requirement? Like, is there? do
Yet to be
those are-
determined.
Okay, so we don't know enough about what the regulations are gonna look like, or what the EV charger is gonna,
The question will be, does it qualify as beneficial electrification?
yeah.
Or efficient, they have standards called efficient electrification,
Yeah.
or there's,
Basically a form of DER, distributed energy resource, because, I mean, there's possibility for us to suck off the batteries. I mean, if,
I think vehicle to grid is a long way from being materially impactful, I would say, mostly because people don't want
but
to.
if somebody's doing
Yeah.
that, I mean, they're probably gonna install some sort of battery system and all of that too.
Yeah. But
I
yeah,
guess
could
that's
be-
what I'm thinking.
That could potentially be part of that. new
Yeah, it's a-
requirement, maybe.
Yeah, and I don't know the likelihood, but there's
Yeah.
my initial thought is that it would have to fall under a efficient electrification measure, and they're starting to come out with some guidance that if you do a conversion, you have to convert how much energy it takes to, like lawn implement, like your push mower.
Yeah.
I think there will be rebates for things like that, so I would, that would imply that you can scale it up to a vehicle, but I'm not, yet to be determined. But how they, hey, bring it on!
Oh, Perry's not here, so I can. Perry, you can look at like what, for like, say, energy smart appliance, right? You're going, okay, we'll give you a rebate on this fridge because we're taking a not, energy smart appliance. We're taking it off the grid and we're putting a new, better one on, essentially is why. And so so what if you were to like, say you have a lawnmower, do they calculate, is that, because there's that, whatever, you guys use a reference guide for what these cost, but like, if you look at, say, like a gas lawnmower, it doesn't require any electricity on our grid, but like,
There's an energy intensity.
there's an energy intensity too, right? I mean, you have to secure fossil fuels, all that down to there, so like, is that how that compares it, like,
Yes, that's what the law implies, that there's been nothing developed, because they
Gotcha.
call it, I've always heard it called beneficial electrification.
yeah, because if not, it would be like,
Yeah.
well, you're putting a lawnmower, you get an electric lawnmower, so you put it on the system, now, you didn't really save either
It really-
optimize anything on our system anymore, but in the
Yes, it's-
overall,
Holistically, and that's
Yeah.
where I've always heard it as beneficial electrification. They've shifted to call it efficient electrification, which is a very small difference, but an efficient electrification, if you read the law, there's a conversion factor where they truly take, energy input, and if it can be done more efficiently via a electric source, then yes, there's a savings there, but how that's gonna be calculated and how the savings is calculated, because our savings goals are based on kilowatt hours. So you have to now somehow finding out how you're going to sell more kilowatt hours, but claim it as a kilowatt hour savings.
Yeah.
Because everything's based on our kilowatt hour savings.
And what our power supply, like if we have coal in our power supply,
That doesn't
that's
just
like, you know what I'm saying, like where your power supply come from could be
be very,
wildly different.
I would agree. I think there's
Interesting.
there's still a lot to be figured out and still a lot of things that I think are
Politicians.
significant challenges.
They're on top of it. I'm sure.
Well, the politicians just write words, they just write words until they find the most least objectionable thing.
Okay, sorry.
No, you're fine.
We'll roll on. Just a couple additional notes. Under employee benefits,
Just want to remind the board that we're going to pick up insurance conversations quickly. Our Healthy by Choice insurance plan is being terminated, and we cannot renew. We were originally told that they were going to grandfather us in, and they let us keep riding with it because they shut it down as a new offering, and they're shutting it down completely. So we budgeted, this is just a budget, for 25% increase in benefits, and I think there's probably a pretty good chance that number is close to accurate.
and yeah, not surprising.
No,
I mean, we knew something was coming down the pike, and here we are.
Yeah.
I mean, getting closer to it. And a couple other things, just want to highlight the benevolence and how we're budgeting for it.
that's a change that we backed into it last year, but like,
No change in the budget,
but it is something when we updated the benevolence policy.
the rule,
The guidelines inside the policy and all reference this, and that the board will approve an in-kind and financial support budget kind of separately, and then I have the authority to operate within that a little bit. So wanted to highlight that.
really, and then I'll go to the bottom line real quick. Ultimately, this budget produces $678,000 positive net income. And then if you will go all the way up to the comparison, so just a high-level breakdown. One of the things that I think is useful is we've been comparing our budgets and everything to UFS assumptions in our long-range financial plans. And well, a couple of things here, we didn't get the same deliverables this year with UFS, and we're still working with UFS to see how this budget really tracks up. We backed into a few numbers and we've used a couple of reports, but I guess I include this to say directionally this budget is in alignment with everything we've done over the last couple of years with our long-term financial planning. So again, nothing super important to take away here except for we're very much in line with where we thought we would be at this point, especially knowing that where there's going to be quite a bit of movement between now and the final budget. I mean, specifically, there's going to be movement in labor dollars. Obviously, Ryan has talked about his retirement, so he's transitioning towards retirement. Tentatively, at this point, he is not anticipating fully retiring. We're still working out some of those details, so there's still a lot to be figured out there. We're looking at some other another potential retirement that the individual hasn't fully committed to. That's not factored into this budget, but I think is highly likely. But this budget does include a full year of another journeyman line worker. More will shake out. I don't want to share individual business, but just want to highlight that between now and the final budget, we know that we need some more definitive answers on some labor dollars. But even with this, last year, our current fiscal year's
labor budget's about 1.48 million. This budget has a payroll total of about 1.55 million, which is about a 5% increase in labor. So even with some conservative estimates, we're still in that 5-ish% range, which really is not bad from a labor standpoint. Any questions on the income statement or the operating budget from this perspective?
None for me.
And there's still more opportunity. We'll talk a little bit about capital budgets.
Real quick, I know we're not there now when we get to kind of, assuming when Gary's back and we start looking at the budget in a month or two again. I'm sure he's gonna wanna look at benevolence money and compare it to probably net income or something to follow our net income. If we wanna move that up, so.
Yeah,
and
that number's based on, right now is based kind of on requests.
Yeah.
And what fits into what we're doing.
Yeah.
If we were to increase it, we would probably have to get more aggressive on spending it. Where right now, some of it is, I don't say it's reactionary, because there are certain, I don't want to say that, because there are certain things that we say, we want our name on that, we want to support that, that's a great organization, that's the type of thing we support. But for the most part, it's a lot of what requests do we get, so
sure.
Happy to dive into it however you want to kind of carve it up and look at things, so I'm definitely not opposed to being more aggressive and intentional in our efforts and in spending some of those funds.
Yeah, I mean, it's, if our net income keeps, if we keep getting back and rising up, it's like, I've heard him say specifically, it's been 5,000 since I can remember. And it's like, well, I don't remember since I've been on ever hitting.
Yeah, well, that's it.
Either, so you're like, but I get it, like maybe at some point we don't want it to fall so far behind.
Yeah.
Not that I want to tie it to net income necessarily, but it might be
Yeah.
nice to see where net income's going percentage wise and yeah.
Well, I've done it based on percentages. It's such a small percentage of so many different things that, because when we adjusted the policy, we're like, oh, we tie it to this and it's such a small percentage. But yeah, we can track it. However, I will say we have gotten, went from 5,000 to 17,000 in one big jump.
Sure. What do you mean with taking in-kind into there?
Yeah, because it used to just be one number, in-kind and financial all hit the same line item. It was 5,000 combined between the two.
Yeah.
Where this is
We weren't
separated out.
necessarily tracking the in-kind.
No, we were. We were tracking it, just not reporting out on it separately. It all just kind of hit one.
That's what I'm saying, it was
I mean,
there, it just wasn't budgeted there.
Yeah.
Didn't hit there necessarily.
Yeah, I don't remember where, I don't know how that, I don't remember all the details on how that was reported, honestly.
I don't think I just think it was,
Absorbed. Do you remember
Yeah, it
where?
was all in the miscellaneous general expense line.
That's what it was, yes. It was all hidden a little, it was a little less clear.
Yeah.
So now it's far more transparent, I guess. But yeah, happy to dive into it however, and if we want to pick up the conversation.
yeah, I mean, we sit there and we budget it, it's like, I don't know how we push to use those more, but maybe we should. It would be nice to get somewhere near the budget for that every once in a while.
Yeah, I think we're getting a little bit closer. The in-kind ones,
That we do quite a bit.
we do quite a bit there. It's the financial support. I turned one down recently. I didn't think it quite fit what we were looking for. It would have been a great place to put our name, but it wasn't quite in alignment. And sometimes they're just limited. But I will say we've also expanded how we use those funds significantly over the last year and a half, 2 years. So we're sponsoring more type 5K type things. We're involved in the Alpha Cares 5K, the Harvest Hustle, some of these things that we tend to not be involved with, we've gotten a little bit more involved with. So, but yeah, I'm happy. I think some of our staff would love it. They love doing that stuff and supporting the community. So, capital projects, IT projects. I'll highlight again. Some of them are replacing some aging infrastructure. Unfortunately, the data center that is the heart and soul of our IT is pushing end of life already. It's hard to believe, but this year we're budgeting to replace the core switches, and we will extend the support for one more year on the servers, and next year we'll be looking to replace the servers. Also includes replacing the wireless access points. I don't think I see one in here. Nope. Is it in there? I was gonna say, it's not one in here. It's a legacy piece of equipment from our previous vendor, and what we'll be moving to will provide far more insight and control from a network oversight perspective. We're going to use access points that communicate with our firewalls a little bit better and have quite a bit more functionality, and will allow us to continue to further segment our networks and take on some additional security measures. So that's a big piece of the capital budget. Also includes, IT includes a new firewall for the SCADA, some SCADA upgrades, and just some minor pieces of other equipment, but a lot of it's just replacing aging equipment. The capital equipment budget has continued to increase, and a lot of this is driven by transformer pricing. That's the majority of what we budget for here, is just making large transformer purchases. Included in this is all the transformers that we expect to need on the east side to round up some, finish out some voltage conversion projects. Also includes purchasing some 3-phase units in anticipation of, either kind of replenishing our stock, building our stock, or in anticipation of future voltage conversion needs for 3-phase services. They get a little bit more complicated when you need to buy a $15,000 transformer. $15,000 goes a long way when you're building an overhead single-phase line. $15,000 doesn't go very far when you need to replace a 3-phase pad mount. So really just bolstering our transformer stock. Voltage conversion projects include, the bulk of that is pulling the wire underneath the Grand River at Jackson Street. We will finish that project out. That will finish the tie line between the south side of the river to the east side of the south side of the Grand to the east side of the flat. Connects that loop. And then on top of that, we'll focus on finishing out Washington Street, Jefferson Street, and the goal for this year, it may be a lofty goal, we may not quite be able to get there, is to completely remove the Lafayette step-down transformer. We're getting close. I'll say this is not a firm budget on this one. We're still building. Capital budget involves a lot of pricing development, quote development. We're not wrapped up with all those. We're still in quite a bit of planning phases, but I don't want to. I think it may be a stretch to remove the Lafayette step down next fiscal year, but
asked by it every time I go over and stop by the garage there when the guys are having their, I don't know, whatever day of the week. Tuesday is most of the time, but it can be any day of the week, and they're like, "When are you gonna get rid of that transformer?"
we're getting closer.
And that's what I keep telling
Closer
them.
and closer. There's some challenges. Grendel is a long single-phase line, and Casey and Ryan and I were all kind of putting our heads together, looking at, how can we reconfigure things? There's pieces that they're still yet to be determined, but we are getting very close to removing one of those, which would be pretty awesome. I'd be pretty thrilled to do that. Now, vehicle replacement fund, we are making increased contributions and forecast to make increased contributions based on the 2 trucks on order that hadn't come in. Facility improvements, there's not much this year, and this is not a comprehensive list because there's other projects that we've tossed around that aren't included here. Some of it's redoing the floor in here. This needs some, this is a couple years old and needs to be refinished. We want to get some outlets in the floor in here, but also want to look at adding access to control to a couple doors at the office that don't have access control on, that will improve functionality. And then really there's a small section of over the generation facility that needs a roof replaced. And then we'd like to look at replacing blinds in the office. best we can tell, the blinds are over 25 years old and they're a
I
little.
was sitting
they're
in
a
your
little-
office today and yeah, just kind of noticing that, yeah, you had one bent slat and I'm just like, it kept catching my eye.
It's a hard thing to prioritize in a budget, and it'll be one of the first things to get dropped. But it's the last thing that really hasn't been paid attention to in the office, and we've got great facilities, and if it works, I think it's a little icing on the cake. But to be honest, we've got a lot of quote development, and that one's kind of a very much a ballpark number. Generation projects, Casey's budget is going to increase probably for the next few years, and this is largely due to requirements. Right now, if MISO calls on us to run the generators, Casey has 5.5 hours to fill it up. And we get full capacity credit as long as he responds in 5.5 hours. MISO has proposed rules to FERC that will drop that to 2 hours. And they are moving towards a half hour. Half hour, I don't want to say what's feasible or not. What I can say is the projects that really Casey is developing are directionally towards moving us towards a 2-hour response time, knowing we can build on top of them to get to a half-hour response time. We're trying to, everything we do is working towards that half-hour response time goal, but the immediate focus is to get it down to 2 hours, and a lot of that is associated with the gas compressor skid and having remote control to be able to fire that gas compressor up and start the pre-running processes before anybody even gets here. That tends to be the longest, the oil, you say what it is. I'll say it wrong. Oil pump, lube,
Yep.
warm thing.
You got it.
Yeah.
Pre-moving and oil heater.
Yeah, those two things. So two things, I always want to combine them into one, but that's the biggest thing that is the hang up in our response time, is it takes a long time to get that oil up to temperature so that the gas compressor skid can really fire up and be fully operational. So, yeah, that's going to be a big piece of it, I would say. And the majority of, actually all of that $100,000, and that's just a placeholder, I'll be honest. Casey's still working with, and has been working with the manufacturer of the gas compressor skid to identify what all the components are to automate certain things, and then what needs to happen from a SCADA standpoint, what needs to happen from a PLC standpoint to initiate some of these sequences. So it's going to be a very tech-driven generation project.
Are you
I was saying,
in the budget or? are we
just
moving
about
on to-
the only thing else is the system expansion budget. That includes the next phase of Harvest Meadows and Stony Bluff, but that is only the labor piece of it. We're gonna charge out all of the material in this budget year because we anticipated at least Harvest Meadow happening this year, so we're gonna put all the material to this budget, and then labor will happen next budget because of the timing. And then minor cap projects are just customer install projects that ultimately get capitalized, or small things like the crews are getting ready to replace the river crossing at the Hudson Street Bridge. We're going to replace both poles on either side and pull new conductor in over the river. It's one of the projects that never rises to the level of being flagged as a major capital project, but it's important, and incrementally they move us forward. So I want to make sure we keep funds available for those strategic smaller projects. But that's all I had from a capital budget. If you'll go to the graph, Megan, it just kind of highlights that nothing is really out of whack. You can see that the FY24 budget, we saw some elevated numbers, and the actual FY projected tend to move in a more favorable direction. Look at the income statement, you'll see we're trending ahead of budget from a net income standpoint, and you can back into the rest of the pieces. But that is the draft budget. Again, it'll move quite a bit between now and the May final budget, but happy to entertain any questions. I answered them all. plus the ones you didn't even know you had.
Yeah, so, I mean, I don't have any questions. Again, yes, this is a preliminary budget. Things are gonna move around. I guess we deal with them next go-round. We've got all of the heads up on the things that are most likely going to shift and change. And so, again, it's a situation that we don't have too many surprises.
I hope.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Yeah.
We hope there's no surprises between now and May, but there's a lot of fine tuning.
Yeah.
We look at the draft budget as directionally correct, precisely incorrect.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's budgets in general.
So, you ready to move on to the next item on the agenda?
No, We've got to have a vote. The board needs to approve the draft budget.
Oh, we have to approve the
Yes,
draft budget.
Has to be, yeah, it has to be approved and ultimately.
Action items.
Yes, of course.
I will.
Yes, I'm looking for a motion to approve the draft budget for year 2025.
I'll move to approve the operating draft budget for 2025.
I'll support it, I guess, capital budget, sorry, full budget.
Okay, any more discussion? All in favor? Say aye. Aye. Oh, I don't have to vote now, dangerous.
You still need to.
Yeah.
4-0 is better than.
Any opposed? All right. I
All
guess
right,
we're ready for strategic plan update. Charts today, we talked about it a bit. We spent a lot of board time, I believe, last time hashing this out. Great. But I think at this juncture, it's just best to email Charlie with any other thoughts on this. He can wordsmith it some more. And then, or somebody
My
can.
favorite thing.
Yeah. And then, you know, then we'll vote on it at some point. I don't know, what's the timeline on this? Does Perry have,
No, there is no set timeline. It's just an enhancement to the strategic plan. Kind of sequentially, what we'll do is, I took the feedback, and as far as the feedback from last month, tried to incorporate everybody's feedback. The one piece that we pulled out and deviated a little bit was from our internal strategic plan session with the leadership team. There was they all thought, and collectively we thought that safety is important enough to give it its own priority. There's a lot of talk of, do we incorporate it here, do we incorporate it here? And as I started to look at things and work with the leadership team, we said, let's just make it its own. So that's really the only difference. Again, if the board's happy with the wordsmithing, welcome to take action on it tonight. If you want to email any recommendations or try and wordsmith anything or kind of, massage this into some sort of final form, happy to do that. We don't have to take action by any means. It's just a matter of, when the board is comfortable with where we've gotten to and, feels like it's captured our intents, then we can move it forward. And then sequentially, once it's moved forward, the thought is I'll hand it over to our internal team to kind of polish up and take some of your recommendations as far as let's add some pictures and let's graphically adjust it, and I'd like to make it. I'm curious what Emily can do if I just say, hey, make this look better. I'm not a real creative person. She is. So if I give her some very generic guidelines like that and let her creativity run, then
We'll think about our coin. Have you ever seen what do you call those coins?
The challenge.
Oh,
The challenge coins, have you seen the power ones?
no, I haven't.
Do you have one? With you?
I don't think I have one in here.
Oh my god. One side's like the Light Power logo, and the other side is just, it's unfathomable why, we can't figure out who made them. It's like it looks like a lineman painting on a pole, getting electrocuted.
Oh, no.
Lighting
No.
around it, looks like the electricity, he looks like he has a puzzle piece as a face, it's like 2 colors, I can't,
No.
it makes no, you're like,
I don't have one.
yeah, we'll have to, I'll bring one in.
I'll bring one to
Is
the
there, you're like, who did this? Just like 50 of them in a drawer somewhere. I can't figure out who bought. You're like, why is this?
I think we dug up who did. I don't even remember. We'll just say it's a long time ago.
All right, so, no more discussion, any more discussion on the strategic plan?
I guess I just want to say I really like what this says now. As I read through it, I was like, yeah, I think it captures extremely well. I would just make one change, and that the bottom one, the process item, the embracing a theory of continuous improvement, I'd just change it like culture.
Culture, that's a great word. I didn't like that word and I don't like doing things in theory.
Exactly, yeah, like, if we're gonna embrace it,
I mean,
this should be more than a theory.
Yeah, I wrote that. It's like, this is the word. This is the me not liking wordsmithing thing because I didn't have a better word for it.
That's the only thing I would
I like
personally
that.
change on that whole thing, is I just read it over and I read it a couple times thinking it's gotta be something I could, but I liked it. I mean, it was just,
I like that.
I'll say, and if the board chooses to move forward with it, I've talked to Perry about this. Perry and I touched base before he left town. I think he sent an email to what was supposed to be the whole board. I don't think it made it to, I'm not sure how he managed to eliminate people from an email.
okay.
But I did talk to Perry and he was supportive of it, supportive of this.
Supportive of us voting on
Oh, yeah,
this tonight?
Yeah, you're welcome to vote tonight if you'd like. There's no urgency to it, but, if there's not gonna be any changes, I know Perry's supportive of it. And I would say, if it is gonna be approved, approve it with the
With
recommendation.
what Andrew said,
Okay.
yes.
This truly is a board decision, but I think that there's a consensus, and I know Perry's supportive.
Okay, I mean, I'd like him to be here, but if he's given his blessing and it's on our agenda as an action item, I'm more than willing to take that up. So, I guess I will look for a motion to approve our strategic plan update with the adjustments that we made this evening.
so I'll motion to approve those updated strategic priorities with the correction, or the change, not the correction, the change of embracing a culture of continuous improvement.
No support.
Any more discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right.
All right, so we'll move on to performance data, and if I can get this done in a half hour, it will officially be the quickest board meeting we've ever had.
No.
We'll take as much time as we need, and I can talk
We can make it more questions.
real
No.
slow.
You're not, no.
Edit in the south.
Yeah. So, today. No, all right. How many cup holders? I want you to know we own 97 cup holders. All right, I'll jump in again, the sales graphs. I'm highlighting trends that I highlight every month. If anybody wants to pause anywhere, happy to pause. Again, residential sales tend to be mangled right in the middle, and everything else tends to track ahead. And this is also why, in the budget, we are forecasted to sell more kilowatt hours. So we factor in the increased kilowatt hour sales, but that PCA revenue and the PCA being down, the overall revenue isn't increasing at the same pace as the sales revenue is. Because so much of it is driven by that PCA.
So yeah, I mean, and the industrial one is tracking kind of like we expected it to track.
Yep. Come December, things are gonna start to ramp up because we've got large industrial load. Commercial's kind of a hit or miss because this does include both small commercial and large commercial. And our small commercial tends to follow more of a usage pattern like a residential customer. So we've seen small commercial not quite hit the sales targets based on, same things that are influencing residential. But if you think about a small business, it tends to look more like a house than a Culver's or McDonald's.
That would be
Or
in the
a
pot
truck.
shop category too.
Yeah.
And we haven't seen the ramp up that we expected from that
No.
at one time.
No.
So.
That's right, yeah.
Yeah, residential sales are wonky, obviously.
Everybody's putting in those LEDs, I guess,
One thing I do want to highlight on the unrestricted investments in cash graph. So last month, you'll remember that bar from January crept up north of the 140-day target here. We have since, and by we, I mean Megan, has recalibrated this graph a little bit, and now we have pulled the equipment replacement fund out of this, and we're considering the equipment replacement fund internally restricted. And that's just in response to the fact that we're going to be building this fund over so many years that it's going to grow to the point where we want to make sure we adequately account for the fact that there's going to be a very large check written out of that. 2 large checks.
2 large,
You gotta
yeah.
take that back potentially. So, with that being said, we had additional cash growth this month, and now our what we consider unrestricted funds have crept north of that 140 days of cash. And again, we don't anticipate, based on this line, what constitutes 120 days of cash, we expect to go the other way next year. We've not hit, well, maybe not the other way. We don't expect much movement. I shouldn't say, we don't expect a big stair step like we have seen the years leading up to it. But other than that, only other thing I'll highlight is the PCA and PCA revenue. You know, it's down fairly low. It's a reflection of, and the PCA takes quite a while to really move because it's made to smooth out the expenses in our power supply over, it's a 6-month rolling average, so it takes a while to roll on and roll off. So we're to the point though where we're seeing, at this point in this juncture, we're seeing some downward pressure on it. But we tend to start seeing that downward pressure this time of year anyways. Still learning how that's going to move throughout the year and over time since we've updated that a few years ago.
Just, not really a serious thing, but I'm just wondering, why do we have PCA all the way down here in the packet when, I don't know, we can kind of have it more up towards cost per kilowatt hour, that kind of thing?
We can rearrange it however. This is just a package. This is all one document and everything that comes out of this one spreadsheet. So we can rearrange it however you want. The performance data can go in any order.
I mean, it just struck me. It's like, well, we were talking about, just rates and how they're trending and talking about rates down here at the PCA. Just thought, I wonder if it would be easier.
Can we just move it to right after the cost per kilowatt hour? Seems to flow. Cost per kilowatt hour is everything, and then the PCA is a component.
Sure can.
All right, yeah, then we go move right onto cash and aging and delinquents. Yeah.
And it's honestly where it is because when we add a new graph, it goes at the end.
Oh, okay.
I know exactly why. That's why the auto pay is at the end and the PCA is at the end. Those are the 2 most recent graphs. The only reason the other new graphs went up to the top is they've replaced another something that was the first thing.
Oh, gotcha. I mean, if it really messes things up, I mean, it's not a big deal. It's just,
No, it's just moving a tab, so it's.
Yeah, it's just an Excel spreadsheet that
I
spits output
figured
out.
as much, but I just,
Alright, we'll move on to outage data. Talked to Ryan before board meeting. We killed 1 squirrel. That was our only outage. 64 minutes, pretty good. 3 customers were impacted. Really, it was a good February. 1 less tree rat.
I was wondering, can we just set up some like little, I don't know, sub-grids or whatever?
Microgrid?
Yeah, where we can just trap the, trick the squirrels to get into it, and, we can have, hundreds of killed squirrels per month. But no outage?
I'm pretty sure that there's gonna be a whole lot of people aggravated that we're dropping squirrels like that. We'll find every squirrel lover in the country.
We can bust them over to their town.
Yeah.
We'll bust them over there.
I'll just catch them and put them on a big wheel, add some giant.
Oh, yeah! Casey, you wanted generation. Yeah! We'll give you a herd of squirrels.
I love that, that's a great idea.
Yeah.
I like that.
Figure out how much it costs to feed them, see how that balances out with your output.
How renewable is this?
Yeah.
Our energy source literally breathes.
We will be.
The first squirrel-powered.
I said we've been on the cover of Current magazine, but I'm not sure if for a good cruiser.
The current lunatics.
Renewable? Sustainable? Lowell takes it to a new level.
Lowell's power supply literally breathes. All right. Onward. No. All right, income statement, again, this is just like a lot of the ones that we talked about. Trends are, we're fairly long way into the year, so I'm happy to answer any questions. Again, customer accounting expense is really the only line item that's over budget, and that's largely driven by big checks that we write for energy waste reduction, lumpy checks that come, so the budget doesn't always follow. Again, revenues, we talked about those. They are trending behind. Part of that is, Megan and I identified a tabulation error in the budget and what we expected for sales this year. Nice thing about it is we make sure that power supply and revenues are tied together. So you'll notice, well, I cannot claim that was they move in concert together where, and then we were also the beneficiary of just reduced power supply costs this year. Market prices have been down, NOx compliance didn't come in as high as we thought it would, so just a favorable situation on a power supply situation, but everything else is very much in line, and we're just exceeding the budget at this point. So any questions on the income statement? All right, move on to the capital projects. If you'll just go, thank you. Again, just want to highlight kind of what's left in the capital budget. We don't have a lot. Big movement is going to happen in the not voltage conversion projects, but in the system expansion budget. We've not touched that yet. That's just waiting on Harvest Meadows and Stony Bluff. All the material has been ordered and most of it's come in, but Megan hasn't paid for it, which is odd.
This month.
This month, yes. I was going to say, normally when things come in, people want paid quickly. But that's the biggest movement from a facilities standpoint. There's a couple facility projects that are still going to get wrapped up. Casey's working with contractors to get quotes and block up the 2 overhead doors that are run into the generation facility. Those used to butt up to a loading dock. No loading dock got ripped out when we did the parking lot, so it just kind of wasted space. It's a small project. It's probably only going to come in $6,000 ish, maybe $7,000. So that's not a big project. Casey's also heading up a project to run a new circuit up to the IT room at the office and have a dedicated sub panel up there. He's put quite a bit of work into prepping that project. That will all get carried out this summer as well. And then, as I mentioned, Ryan's has some work lined up for the minor capital projects, and then voltage conversion projects. We're going to reallocate some of the money that's not going to need spent on the system expansion up to voltage conversion and keep the gas pedal on the floor on that one, since we're not going to be expending that full system expansion budget because of the, not delays, but just the timing of Harvest Meadows and Stony Bluff. So more to come, obviously, but things are trending well at this point. Any questions on capital projects? No. All right. So, manager's report. I don't have, actually, before I give you the manager's report, there's one thing I wanted to just make the board aware, and I bring it up now because I'll forget after the manager's report. But I have the authority, I just got this email today. I have the authority to execute this transaction, but at $5.7 million, I thought it would be wise and beneficial to make the board aware of this. This is our annual hedge strategy transaction. the board recalls a year, 2 years ago, I don't remember exactly when it was, we passed a resolution, that gave me the authority to execute transactions, bilateral transactions as part of our stability hedge plan. So while I have the authority to approve this, the board has the authority to determine the framework this transaction falls within. So it looks like a lot of money, and it is a lot of money. $5.7 million over 4 years, but again, it's just to improve our hedge position to bring our power supply position in line with our hedge strategy. It's purely just a risk management transaction. It's just larger than normal with the retirement of Bell River and Campbell, the retirement of Campbell and the repowering of Bell River. Because even when Bell River is repowered, it's not anticipated to provide as much energy as a natural gas plant as it is as a coal plant. They're thinking it'll run between 20 and 30%. We've heard different numbers. It depends on gas prices and electric prices. Yeah, but it'll probably run out where Bell River, a coal plant, you want running 90% of the time. We never get that, especially out of Bell River. Bell River runs 65, 70% of the time, a lot of the times. Even a well-run, clicking on all cylinders gas plant, it's still only going to run 25, 30% of the time. So we'll see a significant reduction in the energy that we receive from that investment. So this makes up for quite a bit of that. But just more than anything, wanted to bring it to the board's attention before I sign it and send it back to the NPPA next week.
Well, noted and acknowledged.
Cool. All right, so the manager's report. First thing, just want to highlight that last month we approved the Whitetail Solar Project contingent on the full Board of Commissioners of NPPA. BOC approved that last month, so the board's action on Whitetail is official now. Also starting to amend and get documents at NPPA in alignment and everything lined up for the Bell River conversion process. We have a Bell River Power Plant participation agreement that outlines how our participation, NPPA's participation in Bell River works. It determines everything. We had to execute an amendment that codified how capital contributions for the repowering would be accounted for. Because in the original agreement obviously didn't have anything that said, hey, in 40 years this is going to be a natural gas plant and here's how you handle it. So we'll handle all conversion capital costs through this amendment, and then there will be a amended and restated participation agreement in its totality that will govern our relationship once it's converted and moving forward. So there's a lot of pieces, more just bring it up to say the technical side of things is being handled by NPPA, and all the contractual movement that needs to happen that's associated with the repowering is moving through its processes. Again, I mentioned some natural gas stuff. NPPA did a great presentation at the last meeting. I'm going to steal some of probably and highlight for the board. But where it matters to us is on-peak power pricing for the next 18 months is nothing that's super scary, which is nice. I don't know if that was your takeaway as well. We had other conversations, but
natural gas prices drive a lot of.
Yeah. And natural gas prices are not really. We got a year or two of what appears to be more stable. What NPPA presented was a more stable outlook moving forward over the next 18 months when you've just not a ton of volatility. So we'll see how that materializes. Nobody was expecting a war in Ukraine either.
Well, it kind of ties into what you were saying before about the LNG plants that are under construction, and when they're finished being constructed, we'll be exporting more natural gas and the prices will go up.
Yeah, there's a really interesting, in their presentation they shared an interesting infographic that basically showed that we aren't producing enough natural gas right now to meet future needs. And there's not any incentives, and there's, it used to be that when gas hit a certain price, wells were uncapped and they started producing. There's more speculation over stranded costs and the long-term, I'll say viability, the long-term economics associated with gas exploration. And, we're just, it's an interesting problem, and you please chime in, but I don't say interesting, it's a crappy problem, but we're heading on a collision course.
Well, what state or federal government restrictions will allow or not allow as far as production or exploration or?
It's a tough industry to hedge your risks.
Yeah.
And yet to be determined.
Yes.
We'll see, because we've seen the impact of, and we've seen the impact of LNG. There was a large, after the Ukraine war really ramped up, we saw huge spikes in natural gas pricing. Then it stayed kind of stable, but really high. And then there was a single fire at a large LNG export facility, and you could almost overnight watch the natural gas prices drop. So the LNG exports can have a material impact on the price of natural gas.
But the outlook is at least for the
Favorable.
next 18 months favorable.
All right. I meet with Senator Singh tomorrow to talk about the proposed mandate that would require us to participate in the PA 95 Low Income Energy Assistance Fund. As I mentioned last month, we're not opposed to ensuring that customers have access to the support that they need. What we are opposed to is using a municipal electric bill as the mechanism to collect funds from our customers that will ultimately go to for-profit utilities. And we meet our local needs through our local resources. That's what the beauty of public power is. It's public. We're here. Decisions are made locally, and we meet our needs locally. And yeah, we'll see what happens tomorrow during the conversation with Senator Singh. I thought Casey's generation update was interesting this month. It highlights all the things that he does. It was an interesting one because if you go through it, you start with primary responsibilities associated with generation, and then fire inspections, and then a facility project, and then SCADA work. I mean, it touched on a whole lot, but I thought it was interesting because it does highlight, how we operate as a team, and somebody can have an individual title of a generation superintendent, but we're not going to let Casey just hang out and hang out with his turbines. He's going to get involved in everything that he brings to the table. So just appreciate the work that you do, Casey, and appreciate being available to touch a lot of different pieces of the business. So do have a line shack update. So I was included in a city meeting regarding line shack planning yesterday. One of the things that we've expressed is this disconnect between the authority to take action on that building and the responsibility for that building. And I shared that I thought there was a misalignment between responsibility and authority. And we can't do anything to that building. We don't own it. We can't do anything to it. We can't tear it down. We really are kind of, at this point, just waiting for it to be sold. So I requested that we clarify roles and responsibilities and codify what roles and responsibilities there are. And I've been told that the city commission or city legal counsel will be supplying Light and Power Board with a letter essentially indemnifying Light and Power from all responsibilities associated with that building, whether it's maintenance, upkeep, the liability of the building, in carrying insurance on it. We're gonna step away and remove us from the equation and let the city progress with their development that has some major hurdles. When FEMA redrew the lines, it made developing that property far more challenging. One of the things that the city's attorney highlighted during the meeting is what the process is to move that line. I don't necessarily think it's it's potentially a lengthy process, and it's at the hands of FEMA. So I just asked if we could be done with it. Can we not necessarily be done with it, but let's stay out of the city's way. Then let the city continue their conversations with the developer and try and come to some consensus on what it's going to take to get that property developed. Because I did ask the couple council members that were in the room at the time, what's the preference? Is the preference of the city to see this property developed into a tax generating property, or is the city okay with it just being green space or a parking lot or something other? And the two council members indicated that their preference would be to see it developed. I'll leave it at that and let the city continue their conversations with the developer and see if they can't come to an agreement on what it's going to take to get this thing developed. RP3 application, I should have had the final designation to announce tonight, but those have been delayed. They were supposed to be done by the end of February. I got an email that said we've got a backlog of requests for reconsiderations, and we'll have you a final determination by the 8th of this month. The 8th? I see Casey checking the date. That did come and go. That came in. I've not heard anything, so hopefully next month I can share. I better be able to share next month because they're supposed to make the announcement at the Engineering Operations Conference, which is about a month from now, so they should probably have that. I would imagine they'll have that wrapped up. Other than that, I want to highlight that we did start the NIST CSF, the Cybersecurity Framework Compliance Project with IP Consulting. It's going to be a lengthy project. There are 117 standards that this certificate, is that what, I think it was 117, wasn't it?
120, 117.
Yeah, 117, and every standard has to have a policy that points to how we are going to remain in compliance. And inside of those policies, they range from things that are wide-reaching and very broad in application to things that are highly technical and highly specific that matter more for our vendors. Encryption standards, how to set up a SFTP server, and what encryption is going to be used on. It's things that they're just standards, and if you don't have the policies, you leave interpretation up to whoever's on the receiving end, and we ran into significant challenges with the interpretation of how things should be handled from previous IT vendor. So we're trying to base everything on a known, established standard and industry best practice, and it's going to be a pretty lengthy process. It will be heavily involve the board because the policies that need to be developed need to transcend any individual or any group of employees or even any individual board members or collective board. This is really a long-term direction-setting policy that's going to be the foundation for how we do all things IT related. It'll address everything from how to handle locking of doors and access control on critical infrastructure, monitoring outside contractors while they're in the building to encryption standards, or it's going to cover the gambit. I will say we went through an initial assessment. Most of the way through an initial assessment, there are a lot of things we have already done. And there are a lot of things that we are doing, we just don't have a codified policy that says this is how we handle this situation XYZ. So while it's gonna be a heavy lift, it's a heavy lift over a long period of time, and, you know, I don't think it's gonna result in, I shouldn't say I don't think it would, there will be significant changes, but it's not like we're starting from the ground up. We're already doing quite a few things. We've already put ourselves in a good position by moving our IT vendor services to IP consulting, and they follow these standards, and these standards guide how they interact with their clients. So they're recommending these things ahead of even doing this project. And I'll say Casey and Megan are on the internal IT teams. I don't know if either of you have anything to add as far as the project.
Yeah, I'd just say IP Consulting has definitely put us on the right path early on, when we first started working with them, correcting issues, getting us, basically to the point where we're not starting from square one. They've already established this is where we want to go ultimately, and it's not like we're kind of lost in the standard. We got a good foundation. We've already accomplished a lot of individual steps, so they've definitely, before we even knew it, got us going in the right direction. So,
Good job.
yeah.
Which also highlights, when I think Tina, I think you asked when we went to IP Consulting, I think you said, we went with somebody we trusted before. How are you gonna make sure we don't end up exactly back right here in 3 years with you? And the answer was, IP Consulting bases things on industry best industry best practices and standards. And this is very much evidence of that. We've gone through all these things, and it just supported, because there's a software program that's used to develop these policies. It's not like IP Consulting wrote this, it's the National Information Standards Technology, Institute of Standards and Technology, yes. This is a national group, independent group that establishes these standards, so it just reinforces that IP Consulting does things the right way, and it's based not on their opinion, but on industry best practices. IT project, GIS, I thought, just want to highlight, we've really hit the ground running with some GIS work and are making some progress. We finished up the joint use audit for AT&T internally, and are continuing to work on the back end, setup work on GIS. We're getting more and more familiar with it, and I continue to be involved, and we're looking at building our team and rounding out some knowledge bases there, and hopefully getting this thing in the field and operational sooner than later. MPPA stakeholder meeting, May 2nd. If you could make it, we want to highly encourage it. APPA legislative rally, I just want to highlight that at the end of February. Spent a few days in DC with MMEA and MPPA talking with our legislatures. Well, the House was not in session, and all of our Congress people were back here in district while we were meeting with their staff in DC. It's how that event goes sometimes. When it's booked, you don't know if they're going to be in session or not. But we had some really good conversations. We focused a lot on supply chain issues. We've encouraged the government to pause on transformer efficiency standard increases while transformers are major challenges from a supply standpoint. If the proposed Department of Energy transformer efficiency standards are put in place, it will be heavily dependent on a steel that is very much limited in production domestically. I won't get into the technical end of things, but it will cause more supply chain challenges if they continue to move forward with these. So we've just asked, give it a pause. Let the industry recover from COVID. Let's get to where transformers don't take a year to get, when before COVID they were 6 to 8 weeks. Now you're lucky if they're 6 to 8 months. So that was a big move. We also focused a lot on the federal subsidies to Palisades, and the fact that there's certain people, individuals, organizations that are going to be major winners when it comes to having a purchase power agreement that's subsidized by $1.6 billion of government money at the state level. We're going to continue to talk with our state legislatures about the fact that $300 million is being committed to repower Palisades, and up to 49% of that power could go to Hoosier Co-op, which barely has a presence in Michigan. We are very supportive of seeing Palisades fired back up from a grid reliability standpoint. It's absolutely necessary to have carbon-free baseload generation for grid support, but how the deal was worked out and how the government chooses who can be the recipient of the $1.6 billion subsidized PPA is something that I think the federal government and the state government should be looking at. And then next month, just want to highlight that next month I think there'll be a couple policy discussions. One of them will be an update to our line extension policy that basically just tells, it's a calculated value that says how much we'll contribute as a utility to helping a customer get set up, and then we get a service set up, and then what the responsibility of the customer will be, and then we will. I'm hoping we will also have a policy discussion around voluntary work on Saturdays and Sundays. Now that we've moved to a little bit more flexibility in the office and allowing from some work from home time, we've had some requests from the employees to be able to work on Saturdays, Sundays, or holidays a little bit here and there. In the way that our policies are currently written, that is all overtime, qualifies for overtime automatically. And we're looking at some policy updates that would give our group a little bit more flexibility, because right now we have to basically deny anybody's request to work on a Saturday, Sunday, or holiday because it's just everyday work, and
Right,
we
you
don't
want to
pay
them
we
at
don't
that
pay a premium. But they're willing to do it, and they want. It's a double-edged sword. If we force you to work on a Saturday, Sunday, or a holiday, then premium pay is absolutely warranted. But if it's your choice to do because it's the best thing for you in your situation, then I don't want to put those unnecessary handcuffs on a group that wants to do this. So we got to figure out and I want to figure out how to craft the language so that it doesn't expose some future generation to an opportunity to highly encourage voluntary Saturday work that's not really voluntary. So I want to make sure that I know I'm never going to abuse our staff. They beat me up too quick. But I don't know, 50 years from now, who's going to, and these policies tend to transcend individuals or boards. So I just want to make sure that, while we all know how it would play out in practice now, I don't want to open the door to some future generation to leverage an optional work from home Saturday, Sunday, holiday policy to essentially force somebody to do something. So we just need to make sure it's truly optional in that policy. Other than that, if you haven't completed your cybersecurity training, it will be open through tomorrow. Please complete that if you can. It's one of the things that cyber insurance coverage looks at is participation rates on training. So we really need to encourage 100% participation. And that is the manager's report.
All right, well, I guess next up is the schedule, March 13th. MPPA, MMEA, hope to see you all there.
No, May.
Oh,
Mark, those are regular board meetings. Sorry.
Regular board meetings
Those are
tomorrow.
Yeah, the MPPA board meetings tomorrow.
April, May. Oh, yeah.
I said, I think wrong M month.
Yeah. All right. Yes, wrong M month. Okay, so most important, next Lowell Power meeting, April 1st. Oh, city council. April 9th. Daniel's got you.
Come in.
I'm in. He's in.
I'll be there.
My eyes are tired, I guess.
That's great.
Hey, we got 3 hours left. I don't know what we're gonna do. No,
We
I don't
don't.
think we do. April 9th, next board meeting. I'll say it again because, wow. He says wow. So up next is board comment. Daniel.
Yeah, I guess I just wanted to give some appreciation to like Megan, Ryan, Charlie, anyone else kind of involved in the process of understanding the lead times in the truck, understanding the hit to the cash, the building of the vehicle replacement fund, and kind of understanding how all that's the consequences of those things and how, you know, if Ryan's moving towards retirement and stuff, kind of thinking of like, well, what do we need to keep shoring up? These things are changing. I know they think about it with stacking stuff in here for Harvest Meadows and Stony Bluff and getting ahead on purchasing things and, you know, the all-around kind of brainstorming of those things to make sure we're set to go. So, that's it.
Tina.
I really don't have anything.
Andrew.
I just want to appreciate the effort put into that strategic priorities. I'm glad you guys are putting time into that and thinking about it, because I think those things are important. You know, it's not the same as doing the budget, but it still helps guide us. So I think it's worth the effort. And I also think the effort of the budget was good too, because I do like the thought that goes into it, and just there's a lot of detail that gets discussed. So it's always interesting to hear some of those stories about the trade-offs that get discussed, about a few $1,000s here and there, but that adds up. So we're so glad you guys are doing that.
There's a lot of that.
All right. All right. Well, yeah, I want to acknowledge that I'm really happy with how far we've come with the strategic plan update. I know when I first came to this board, I looked at the strategic plan and it just looked very boilerplate, not a lot of meat on the bone. And I think this puts some meat on the bone and gets us a little bit more focused for the future. Also, I want to acknowledge how hard you've worked on the budget. Yes, we're going to revisit it. Yes, there's a lot of moving parts. We recognize that, and I'm sure we'll get where we need to be on that. So with that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Motion to adjourn.
I'll support at 7:39.
All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We're adjourned.
The sun is out.